Texting and drinking is never a good idea. We've all done it, and we've all regretted it. The drunken texts you forgot you sent. Prospectors collected them in Texticated on Rock 107.
From the 973, Newark, New Jersey. So I missed the last eclipse because I was getting busy. Don't have to worry about that this time. My husband just dumped me. Seattle, Washington, area code 206. Apparently, I was so drunk last night, I got stuck in the revolving door at the hotel. And yes, they have video of it.
You hit send, and we hit the floor laughing in Texticated on Rock 107.
From the 305 in sunny Miami, Florida, I'm due to get my period on Eclipse Day. Am I a witch? And from Akron, Ohio, area code 330, I just want to know, who wrote dibs on my butt?
Proof that booze and cell phones don't mix in Texticated on Rock 107.
From the 517, Lansing, Michigan, just packed a snack on the way to eat to McDonald's. That stone. And from Colorado Springs, Colorado, area code 719, I was just walking through Burbank and saw a hobo using solar panels on his shopping cart. We gotta be in trouble if the hobos are researching alternative sources of fuel.
Hey, we found him in your telephone. In Texticated on Rock 107. Breaking the news that's already broken. It's time for Prospector's Briefs on Rock 107.
Experts predict a severe allergy season, so if you see someone at Walmart buying a lot of Sudafed, now you know why. They're making meth. Michael Jackson's daughter Paris turns 26 today. They say she was named after the place she was conceived, but if that's true, why isn't she called Test Tube Jackson? 2 cases of the bird flu have been discovered in the United States. Health officials are warning people to use mouthwash after making out with a bird.
Prospector ruins everything, even the news. Tune in tomorrow for Prospector's Briefs on Rock 107.
All I keep thinking about is that Bonnie Tyler song, Total Eclipse of the Heart. Remember that scene in Old School at the wedding where the guy started dropping F-bombs in that song? That was funny. I don't understand what's the big deal about a solar eclipse. Okay, the sun is blocked by the moon? Or is the earth blocking the sun? All I know is if you are in the path of totality, it gets really dark for about 3 minutes. Of course, that's the only thing in my life that lasts a whole 3 minutes in the dark.
And that was another episode of 1 Minute Inside a Woman's Head.
Time for another episode of A Few Seconds Inside a Man's Head.
The solar eclipse is Monday. I wanted to drive to New York upstate and see the full eclipse, but she doesn't want to go. Hey, wait, that's a whole afternoon without her nagging. That nails it. Yep, I'm going to check out the eclipse.
And that was another episode of A Few Seconds Inside a Man's Head.
Do you agree or disagree with this statement? The roads would be a much safer place if you were driving all the vehicles. Good morning, I'm Rock 107's Prospector. There's a new survey that says 80% of drivers rate their own driving as very good or excellent. 80%. But only 14% of people would give the same grade to other drivers. So are you one of the good drivers? Trust me, Ricky Bobby, you're not. Especially if you ever uttered anything from today's list of top 5 things that bad drivers say. Here we go. Number 5, once your face gets used to it, airbags don't hurt anymore. Top 5 things bad drivers say. Number 4, I don't get it. Sully Sullenberger crashes in the water and gets a movie. All I get's a DUI. Number 3, what does yield mean? Top 5 things bad drivers say. Number 2, if God wanted us to drive with our hands, he wouldn't have given us knees. And the number 1 thing that bad drivers say, hi, I'm Tiger Woods. There you have it.
Life's pretty tough right now. There's plenty of bad news, but it's not all bad. It's time for the brighter side of Prospector on Rock 107.
A dog named Hero lived up to his name last week in Canada. His 61-year-old owner was injured and stuck lying in a muddy ditch for 2 days. But Hero stayed with him the whole time, kept him warm, and fought off coyotes. He also attacked a random guy and his dog while they were walking by, but the guy says all's forgiven in those circumstances. He gets why Hero was being so protective, and it's also the reason his owner was found safely.
Thanks. We needed that. The brighter side of Prospector on Rock 107.
Rock 107's 9 to 5, no repeat workday. Works are tough, workplaces. You know what I mean? You have rules when you work, even if you work at an incredibly permissive place like here at Rock 107. But my buddy Mike worked at a place where the employees were only allowed to eat lunch together. They had a 1-hour lunch break, and the caveat was you all had to eat in the office kitchen. Forced bonding. Oh, and the boss insisted on being there at all times. Yeah, Mike didn't last at that job long. What weird work rules have you had to endure? Brian, checking in on Facebook.com/Angry Prospector, says when taking a lunch break while delivering mail, they didn't want more than 3 carriers eating at the same location. It was called congregating. Out of the Rock Lines, Rock 107, your weird work rules.
Yeah, well, the one place I worked at, you couldn't talk.
You couldn't talk at all.
Nope, you couldn't have a conversation with your coworker.
What was the reasoning?
Productivity.
What kind of work was it, if you don't mind me asking?
Body shop.
Body shop. So, like, if you even needed advice, you couldn't even ask.
Nope.
Leslie says, don't stand talking to a coworker with your hands on your hips. Mary, she reiterates that. She says, no hands on your hips or folded arms. It's a sign of aggressive behavior. Wow. I'm actually folding my arms as we speak. Ed in Scranton on the Rock Lines. Dude, what was the weird workplace rules you had to live by here?
I had a 3-second rule that you couldn't stare at any kind of women walking by. Honest to God, I'm telling you, man, it was the nuttiest rule I ever heard of.
I mean, I understand where they're coming from because some women, you could get sued for sexual harassment if you're ogling coworkers and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
But, like, to time it out for 3 seconds. So I can look at you lecherously for 2.8 seconds, and that's fine. But, don't add those 2 tenths in.
Don't go over another second because you're guilty is charged.
EJ, check it in on Facebook.com/Angry Prospector, says, I worked at a place where only supervisors were allowed to use memes or GIFs in emails or IMs, even the ones approved in MS Office. David says, I worked as a contractor for a place, and they have a 5-second rule when looking at women, just like that Ed from Scranton's 3-second rule, right? Out of the Rock Lines, Rock 107, what weird work rules have you had to endure?
They give us, every year, they give us like 12 sick days.
Yeah.
And when you call in sick, they send the company doctor to come get you to take you to the doctors.
So if you call in sick, the company guy comes and gets you and forces you to go to a doctor.
Yeah, just to be an inconvenience for you for the day.
Jackson, check it in on Facebook.com/Angry Prospector, says, I worked at the Apple store a while back, and we were not allowed to correct customers. No matter what crazy names they called our products. You couldn't say things like, oh, you mean an iPhone or you mean the Apple Watch? Not allowed.
Ladies and gentlemen, grab the kids, call your neighbors, and gather round the radio.
It's now time to announce the winner of Prospector's Jam Bag of the Day, as decided by you at rock107.com.
We uncover the most baffling, ridiculous, pathetic, cockeyed, laughable, preposterous blunders in the world of misdeeds. Nominee number 1.
A 30-year-old woman in Florida named Amber McCann was caught shoplifting from a Walmart and had no shortage of stories for why she was stealing. In a very confusing discussion with the cops, she initially said she was playing a really fun game called 21, where someone grabs as much merchandise from a store as they can, walks out without paying, tries not to get caught, and originally said she dumped the items along with her purse and ID in a random car and that's part of the game. Later, she said it was really a rental car that her boyfriend had, and he didn't know about her theft because he's too old to play the game. Police eventually figured out which car it was and found more than $1,000 worth of stolen goods in the back seat. They also found drugs, including marijuana, meth, and other drug paraphernalia, and a locked safe with bars of silver, copper, and platinum. Those weren't from Walmart, of course. Amber was charged with grand theft, possession of marijuana, hashish, and other drugs and drug paraphernalia, and she was also charged with trafficking of meth.
Nominee number 2.
This is something you don't just whoops away. A historic building in Salt Lake City has become the focal point of controversy after a demolition commenced on Easter morning. The historic 5th Ward Meeting House dates back to 1910 and now lies in ruins after demolition began early Sunday morning. The Meeting House served a diverse group of people and at one point even served primarily Native American church members. After being sold by the church, it went through many phases over the years, from being a Tibetan temple to a rock and punk venue known as the Pompadour in the 90s, where Nirvana once played. A Sunday demolition came as a shock to residents, especially considering the building wasn't supposed to be torn down at all. According to city officials, no building permits were issued for the address, no demolition permits were granted.
And the winner is...
the Walmart thief who said she was playing a game called 21, where you steal a bunch of stuff and dump it in a random car. It's not a game, it's a crime. You're the Yam Bag of the Day, and we'll move on to Friday's Yam Bag of the Week competition. Keep it here for all the nominees for Prospector's Yam Bag of the Day, weekday mornings on Rock 107. And the Prospector's Prime Cuts podcast. Be sure to catch us live weekdays from 5:30 to 10 a.m. on Rock 107 or online at rock107.com or the Rock 107 app. A free download for your Android or iPhone. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss Prospector's Prime Cuts.